Yoga Connection with Zorananda is a deep dive into the world of yoga, exploring the rich history of tradition, methodology, and practices both ancient and modern. Follow along as yoga is explored through solo episodes to guest interviews to understand its vast reach around the world. Hello and welcome to the Yoga Connection. My name is Zorananda, and today we are diving into the seventh limb of Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana. And today I'm really going to emphasize the importance of adopting the terms Dharana and Dhyana to replace meditation. And there's a very important reason for this, and it has to do with experience. It has to do with taking what meditation is and adopting Dharana and Dhyana to clearly map out what the experience of meditation is, and to really identify with Dharana and Dhyana, and so that the experience is very clear at the end of it. What I've done here is I've found the definition of Dhyana. I went to a website called sanskritdictionary.com. I originally used this other website called TamilCube. It was really great. They changed it for some reason, and now it doesn't work, which sucks because back in the day it was like the best to use. But now I'm using sanskritdictionary.com, and I found one particular definition of it that has several different descriptions, which is great. And I'm just going to run through these, and I'm going to pick out two of the definitions or two of the explanations that I think are completely pertinent to this conversation, and I'm going to really dive into them. So first and foremost, it states meditation, reflection, thought, contemplation, which is like textbook what the term meditation refers to. If you haven't listened to my last two podcasts, I go into this pretty deep, that the term meditation was coined by a French monk in the 1200s. And this term is specifically for the contemplation on the Word of God, right? And so we have it here in the kind of translation on this website. And so it goes on to say, especially abstract contemplation, religious meditation, divine intuition or discernment, mental representation of the personal attributes of a deity, attainable by meditation only, lost in thought, absorbed in meditation, contemplative, suitable for mere thought or reflection, a prescribed attitude in which to meditate on a deity. So the most important parts of this, in my opinion, is divine intuition or discernment and mental representation of the personal attributes of a deity. So this is what really distinguishes what Dhyana is as more than just meditation. And so what we have now is a line towards experience. In our kind of typical general understanding of meditation, it's used self-servingly, right? I need to meditate to calm my mind. I need to meditate to become more peaceful. So it's intrinsically selfish. And almost no matter what we do, it's not really going to work out as well as we think it does. And even though you can go on to social media, you can go online, you can get all kinds of reviews on people's experiences with meditations and how great it has been to quiet their mind and, promote contentment and peacefulness, there's a very key thing missing that Dharana and Dhyana, especially Dhyana here, has embedded in it that is much more streamlined towards a particular experience. And the particular experience is ultimately samadhi. It's ultimately enlightenment. And the term meditation is too abstract to include the divine intuition or discernment or mental representation of the deity, because it's so self-serving. It still includes you as I am the one meditating, and so I am doing this to promote this kind of experience that is just to relieve kind of like personal stress. And so what my goal here is to encourage replacing the term meditation with dharana and dhyana, so that when you go to sit down, you know that there is a trajectory for an experience. And this is the reason why Ashtanga Yoga was built. The practices of yoga were needed to be systematized so that the kind of spoken about elusive worlds of enlightenment, samadhi, and nirvana, that there can be a step-by-step process towards it. And so when we take on a sadhana, take on a yoga practice that is rooted within Ashtanga Yoga, we can actually build ourselves towards it. And when we reach the point of introducing dhyana to our practice, that it makes sense in where it's placed, that we've done our asana practice, we've done our pranayama practice, we're going into our pratyahara practice, we're introducing dharana, concentration, for then the introduction of divine intuition or discernment and a mental representation of the personal attributes of a deity. That the realm of samadhi has sort of gatekeepers. And when we stay within the terms of meditation, without really knowing it, those gatekeepers are going to keep us at bay. And you can meditate for 20 minutes a day every day for your entire life and not really go anywhere, because the entrance into deeper and deeper states of consciousness is initiatory. So there's things that you're going to have to do to initiate yourself and to be initiated into realms that you can explore that have nothing to do with your body. And so if everything about meditation is about your body, then you're going to place a limitation on your experience, whether you're aware of it or not. And that's simply because your intention is to meditate for this particular outcome. And the outcome is still rooted within your physical world, because, you need to start your day with a fresh mind, and you need to contemplate on things in your life, which direction in your career are you going to go, how are you going to handle your kids, how are you going to handle your relationship, how are you going to do this, how are you going to do that. Everything is still self-serving. And so the sadhana practice is that needs to be shed away. You need to shed all that away by working your body to be able to sit still, so that through the pranayama and exchange of energy from the body to the etheric, the pranic body, that then the physical body and its limitations can shed away, so that the concentration of that energy becomes focalized into streamlining towards this new realm. And dhyana is the track that you place yourself on to then move towards samadhi. And what you're doing is you're utilizing a deity to be the representation of that realm, so that you have something to focus on, and that deity can then come alive within your consciousness and start to guide you towards it, so that the initiation can take place. So in the world of yoga, there's a great example of someone utilizing a sadhana and utilizing the intensity of intention to encourage divine intuition or discernment, to then have a mental representation of personal attributes of a deity to help guide into a state of samadhi. And that person is, or was, Paramahansa Ramakrishna. So Paramahansa Ramakrishna was a yogi from the 1800s. Like, this is a long time ago, 200 plus years ago. And he decided to take on a 12-year sadhana where every day, no matter what, he does his practice. And it can be 2 hours to 10 hours. You know, he gave himself a minimum of 2 hours a day. And if he had all day to do his sadhana, he can do sadhana all day. So Ramakrishna does this sadhana for 12 years straight. And it comes to his final day. And he does his sadhana. He's sitting in meditation. And he's in front of a giant metal statue of Kali. So his sadhana was specifically geared towards Kali. And the statue has multiple arms. One's holding a sword. One's holding a severed head. And he's looking up to Kali and he goes, "Mother, this is my last day of my sadhana. I have venerated you for 12 years and you haven't showed yourself to me once. Today is the day. Either you show yourself to me or I take your sword and I kill myself." And this man had the full conviction, okay? And so he finishes his sadhana, he sits down, he goes into his Dhyana practice. Nothing happens. So out of pure rage, he gets up. He goes to take the sword. Kali moves and looks at him and says, "The time is now," and takes him into the state of samadhi. So whether or not that's real, right? So the story is real. Ramakrishna had shared this story and there's like actual accounts of it because later on his students came and found him collapsed under the statue of Kali. So like he didn't kill himself, but you know, he was just passed out in front of her. But whether or not what he experienced was real, he was exercising those 2 points: divine intuition of discernment and mental representation of a personal attribute of a deity, where he's using Kali as a representation of a deity that has access to the realms of samadhi. And every single day, he's just pumping energy into that deity and the personal attributes of mother, right? So he would call Kali mother. And he has this divine intuition that as long as he continues, as long as he just goes and goes and goes and goes, it will happen. And it wasn't until the very end where it happened. And the interesting thing is that even in his hours of sadhana, he wasn't able to reach that point. It wasn't until he threatened death that something happened, right? That something triggered the gateway opening. And this is where I think the gatekeepers of samadhi, they have certain agreements. They have like certain things where they're like, you can get in as long as this, and this is achieved. And through divine intuition, this isn't something that you read in a book. Like, this isn't something that you get from your parents or you get from a teacher or outside in the world. It is purely internal. It is a guidance that is purely internal. And so just like if you were to meditate on an app, you have an app on your phone that says, breathe in for 5, exhale for 10. You know, you can do that for years and it's not going to initiate anything. There's something that is missing. And this is what I love about the yoga system, is that it directly tells you what is missing. It tells you these are the steps. This is what you need to do. You need to include divine intuition. You need to include some kind of object in your mind that represents that divinity, because then you are encoding that divinity to that deity, and the deity is then the thing that can open the gates for you to then experience what samadhi is, what enlightenment is. So this is why it's important to have this system in place when you are taking on the sadhana, so that you go through your asana practice, you go through your movements, you do everything to open your body. Then when you come down to sit, you're doing your pranayama to then move the subtle energy so that you can become much more attuned and aware to the energetics of your system, to then go right into concentration and going right into streamlining through divine intuition. And so there will be a point where your concentration is so strong that you create a barrier where thoughts cannot penetrate in. So this is what I want you to think about, or to observe the next time you're seated and you're going to quote unquote meditate. How close inside of you are the thoughts? And this might be a weird way to think about it, but when you close your eyes and you allow your brain to think about things, it seems like the thoughts themselves are inside of your brain. Like they're so close. They're right there underneath your eyes. What I've found to happen is that when pratyahara is engaged and you can successfully go into sense withdrawal where you don't feel your body anymore, and you're going into dhyana and you're going into concentration, that there's this like barrier that's created, where then those thoughts that felt and seemed like they were right inside the middle of your brain are now being pushed to the outside edges. And you start to realize that your brain isn't just producing thoughts, it is also intercepting thoughts. That a lot of the thoughts that we think are our own are actually things that the brain has like received, that the brain itself is like an antenna. And this barrier is allowing you to then shut out a large portion of the noise that we typically think is inside the brain. And it's at that moment where then we place the divine, or the representation of the deity, to then have this divine intuition that can come through, that we're using the deity as like a beacon, and that we're saying to the universe, like, hey, this is what I want to contact. Because when we're in our waking life and we're just doing our things and we're in our like normal beta state, we're open to everything in the universe. We're just open to all kinds of thoughts, and the experiences that we have in the world are going to influence how we are reacting, and it's going to influence what kind of stream of thought is coming in by the music that we're listening to, the type of people that we're talking with, the people that we work with, the social media that we doom scroll. There's got to be something that allows us to block that out, and pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi is that stream. It's that methodology. And so we need to pair them all together, right, in order to be successful in this. And so that when we actually go to sit down, that we start to replace the term meditation with pratyahara, dharana, dhyana. That we are in a process of dhyana. That we go to sit down and be like, I am in my sadhana to engage pratyahara, to engage dharana, and engage dhyana, so that I can enter into and experience what samadhi is. And essentially, samadhi is a whole new other realm of experience. And so I like to think that in the realm of samadhi, there are people there. There are individuals who exist in a higher order of existence where they are protecting those realms. And they don't want anybody coming into them, or just anybody. They want initiates. They want people who are ready for it. And there are many ways of kind of understanding the dichotomy between who can enter and who can't enter. And there are examples here on this planet. It can be professional sports, right? If you're a hockey player and you just play kind of shinny at your local rink, what's the chances of you becoming an NHL player, right? If you're just like some 20, 30-year-old dude who's playing shinny, there's no chance for you to become an NHL player, right? You have to go through a process. You have to start in, like a kids league when you're 8 years old, and you have to like work your way through and go through the whole program to get to the point where you're in midget, in A and double A and triple A, and to the point where you're in minors, and and it's like that for anything. It's like that with the Olympics. It's like that with football. It's even like that with cars. Like, think about the Model T Ford, the very first car from 100 years ago, and a like S-class Tesla, right? To think that the Model T Ford, which at the time could max go 20 to 30 kilometers an hour, can have the capacity to operate like a Tesla, which can go 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 1.9 seconds. It's fully electric. It has all these capabilities. And so the realm that we're in now and the realm of samadhi is really no different than that. That in order for us to then go into the realm of samadhi, there is a trajectory that we have to go on. And because we're born into this world, we are anchored in this reality physically. We are intimately attached to this body. We are kind of like co-conspirators of being physical. And so what it means to then exit out of this realm, to then go into a new realm, there are steps of initiation to prove that we can handle being in that realm, that we can handle being in that capacity, right? So that's like having someone that is a hockey player that plays shinny, but maybe this hockey player is really fucking good. And so everybody around him goes, hey man, you should actually try out for these leagues, and like you could potentially get onto like a minor league, and then the decision to do that is coming from divine intuition and discernment. That the deity that you're placing in your mind is going, hey man, why don't you do this and this? That's going to help you get up here more. And that to me is really the like core intention of what meditation should be, where it's not just, oh, I'm going to do my 5-minute meditation and, I'm going to do a little bit of breath work and I'm going to feel good about it. That it's like, no, we need to step it up. And I'm doing this so that I can get in contact with divinity itself. I want to get in contact with something so much greater than myself that it shows me a whole other existence. But the thing is, most people don't want that. Most people don't care. And this is the distinction between being like a yoga instructor and an outright yogi. That when you decide, I am a yogi and this is where I'm going, and this is what Pratyahara, Dharana, and Dhyana is going to do for me, that it's going to allow me to shed my attachment to this body so that I can leave it in place and that it's totally fine. It's in suspended animation. It's just a grain of sand in the ocean of the universe. And it can be completely taken care of in that little freeze frame of reality, while me, as a greater awareness and consciousness, can then concentrate myself. And through the concentration of myself, I can start to move myself towards divinity. And I can start to then open myself up to a deity that is a representation of the realm that I'm going into. And this deity can then speak to me. And then I'm now in a place that I'm no longer distracted by the little thoughts of my physical body, that then the stream of energetic exchange between me and the deity is very clear. And this deity is a representation of the divine and goes, hey man, this is how you get to this place. This is how you let go. This is how you heal your karmas. This is how you find what your direct spiritual dharma is. And then you get access to this realm and you experience samadhi. And the whole point of this is to then come back to your body and resonate the presence of that realm in the space that you're in. And so that doesn't mean that you're abandoning your personality, you're abandoning who you are. Who you are in your personality gets like an upgrade. You feel it. You feel more energized, and you feel that your insecurities and your doubts and like depression and anxiety can be resolved. That those things no longer exist because you are now operating in a different state. You are operating as a physical being, as a spiritual being, united through this connection to samadhi, through your focus and your discernment and your divine intuition, that now the information that you receive to live your life is knowingly coming from that place, that it's no longer ambiguous. And that's usually what's happening with people who are kind of shut off from having these kind of practices or living this kind of way, is that they're just kind of stumbling through life. And they're doing their best to try to rationalize the decisions that they're making, but they're not realizing that there's influences for those decision making through different programming. That programming from their parents, programming from their teachers, from television, from music, from all these different places, that we just can't help ourselves to think that the decisions that we're making from this programming are going to be good decisions. And more often than not, they usually are. But usually only in the kind of like mundane operation. And so when it comes to like greater life purpose, and we all have this, we all dream about being something more. We dream about being more financially stable and being rich and being well known and, you know, being whoever, right? That there's something in us to some degree that's like, what is happening right now in my life is subpar to where I think I could be. And what we just don't realize is that the what I think I could be is actually that realm. It's actually that greater sense of control and energetics. And that thinking our way into it isn't going to work, because thinking our way into anything is what causes confusion. And so having this kind of system where we go, okay, physical practice, move my body, open it up. Pranayama practice, open my energetics, move the prana, sit down, concentrate, go into Dhyana, concentrate that pranic energy, and then boom, direct it into the representation of samadhi. And this isn't easy stuff, right? All of this has been debated for thousands of years, you know? And so what I feel my job here is to make a very clear discernment and to kind of teach people that meditation as a word has been co-opted. And it's largely through the occult New Age spirituality, and the yoga community kind of just accepted it because they're like, yeah, that's kind of what Dhyana is. And so, and you get that attitude from Indian gurus, right? That they'll just be like, yeah, meditation is Dhyana. But they know much more clearly what Dhyana actually is. And so I think that's why it's important to look at meditation as a co-opted term and leave it in the realm that it is, that meditation is the contemplation of God and the word of God. And so the thing that I want to clear up, so in these like definitions, there's one that says especially abstract contemplation, religious meditation. So the difference between meditation as a contemplation of the word of God and Dhyana as divine intuition or discernment is that in the word meditation and in the contemplation of the word of God, the Bible is a mediator between you and God, because you're contemplating the word of God through the Bible. Then God itself remains at arm's reach. That you almost stay in this loop of contemplating the words from the Bible, then actually coming in contact with the realm of God. Where Dhyana is divine intuition with a mental representation of the personal attributes of a deity to be initiated into the realm of samadhi by way of this abstract contemplation that the divine intuition is taking you into what God would be without a medium. So that's the difference, is that you're not disempowered by a physical thing. Where in the Christian world, in the Abrahamic world, you have this physical thing that even though it is a representation of the Word of God and of God itself, it innately limits you to what you can experience. And so this is why I think the Ashtanga Yoga path is going to be much more potent and much more powerful and much more direct in actually having a divine intervention than, say, taking it on the co-opted meditation side, that you'll just stay in a loop. And we kind of see this, that I've interacted with many people who have daily meditations and they haven't gone any further than being able to just sit quietly for 20 minutes. And something that I like to keep in mind here is when we're looking at the term meditation and then we're looking at Dhyana, is they come from two different worlds, right? So meditation is coming from the Western world and it's coming from Western religion. And so I think inherently there are going to be limitations because that word is coming from a medieval time of thinking. And so the utilization of it is strictly for the religious context that it's coming out of. And to then take that word and to apply it to the Eastern philosophical and Eastern religious sense doesn't make sense to me anymore. And because now you're going to dilute the experience. Because when you're thinking of Pratyahara, Dharana, and Dhyana, when you actually break down the words and you actually start to translate them clearly and you start to see, oh, okay, Pratyahara means sense withdrawal. So you're tuning out the senses to then go into Dharana to concentrate the energies of the senses that you've kind of captured from the limbs and from the body, to then go into Dhyana to then take the word meditation and to then impose it over dhyana now just doesn't make sense. And you're going to dilute what the original intention and the original sense of what dhyana is. And so this is why it's important to remove meditation from the picture altogether and to just think of the direct terms itself and the more clear and concise definitions. And this is why then dhyana, as divine intuition and a mental representation of the personal attributes of a deity, are much more clear and much more accurate in an experience than what just meditation is gonna be, right? And there's even one point where it's like prescribed attitude in which meditation on a deity, profound meditation. So even on this website, Sanskrit dictionary, like they're trying their best to say like it's not just meditation, it's like profound meditation, absorbed in meditation, lost in thought. So to be able to then separate those two and to say now in your mind, like, okay, meditation is a Western created word to specifically describe a religious action or like an action within the like Christian world. And then dhyana is specifically for yoga and really to do our best not to mix these two. And so that when I'm describing what enlightenment is and what samadhi is, that it's through this conduit, right? And say, for an example, it's like you're building a house and you have electrical and plumbing, and you're trying to bring energy into the electrical conduit, but you're hooking up the water to it. And you're like, oh, why doesn't this work? And it's like, well, because the water goes through the plumbing and it can only give you water. You want electricity, you have to connect it to the grid and to the electrical box and then through the wiring in the house to get the lights on. And so I see it the same way. It's like meditation is the hose, is the plumbing for water, and we're taking yoga, which is the electrical, and we're mixing them and saying, well, why am I not getting the like experience of samadhi and enlightenment through meditation? And it's like, yeah, because now you have to let the meditation be the meditation. You have to let it be in the context of Christianity, for the contemplation of the Word of God. Leave it in that realm. You want to have samadhi and you want to have a direct experience of something greater than yourself and its divinity. You have to go through this channel of Ashtanga Yoga. And it's really no difference than any martial art. If you're taking Aikido isn't going to lead you to Muay Thai kickboxing. You can study Aikido all you want and then go, oh, okay, well, I'm going to take this one technique of Aikido and that's what's actually going to let me be a Muay Thai kickboxer. And then you're going to show up in a Muay Thai kickboxing match and you're going to get pummeled because your Aikido doesn't actually translate. And so this is what I think we're dealing with here is, for some reason, I think in the 1800s when a lot of the yoga stuff was starting to come out, the occultists needed something to bridge the gap. And this was an issue for a lot of members of like theosophical societies where they were Catholics, they were ex-Christians, and they adopted like Eastern philosophy, but they wanted to sell books and they wanted to get a following. And so they couldn't just take the texts from like Tibet and India and transcribe just word for word. They had to start adopting Western terminology and superimposing it onto the Eastern philosophies to say, hey, this thing called meditation is this thing called Dhyana. And everybody just went with it. And so I think it's important now more than ever to go, no. Let's take some steps back and let's really dissect this. What really is meditation? What really is dhyana? And so now we can get a good sense, okay, dhyana is divine intuition or discernment. Is meditation divine intuition or discernment? No. Meditation is the contemplation on the Word of God, and it's on the Word of God from the Bible. Let's leave that in that camp. And now utilize dharana and dhyana in its purest expression as to what it was originally intended. I don't know how much more I have to say on all this stuff. I try my best to reach my 1 hour mark. I'm about 15 minutes away from that. And so now we are setting ourselves up for samadhi. And like I've said in this episode, we're creating a track towards it through Ashtanga Yoga, through doing asana, through doing pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana. And so that at the threshold of physical, non-physical, where we are now tuning out of our physical body so that our experience is directly conscious awareness, that our identification with who we are is no longer through the identification of the name and the place of the body, that there is an understanding and a direct experience of purity of conscious awareness, that you as a being is no longer perturbed by the tendencies and the patterns of the body. And so you as consciousness is still there. You're very much in a sense of self, but that sense of self is no longer in any kind of restraints or any kind of constraints. Where then your experience of samadhi is in a totality of being, where there's no longer an individualized sense of separation. So say between me and my desk and the microphone and the space and the walls, that there's something intrinsically connective where you as consciousness can now expand through the space, and you are the space. You are every single object. You are everything that you encompass. And the essence of all those things is what's pertinent. So it's not that there's an experience of the objects itself in the space. It's that now you are concentrated and you are expanded into then knowingly including everything as a representation of yourself. And that representation of yourself is through that initiation of that deity. The deity welcomes you into the state of samadhi, and then the state of samadhi is the all-encompassing where you're like, oh, I am that deity, and I am everything that is in the room that I'm sitting in, and I'm everything in the physical realm, and I can let it to rest. I can put all that aside, and I don't even need to focus on the fact that I was even physical anymore. And I can just have a direct experience with being completely energetic. And it's in that moment, through your awareness, that the creation of some kind of body is still innate, and that you have a clear energetic body. And it's at that point you start to interact with other ascended masters and individuals who can also form an energetic body, and they show you the mastery of the realm and who they are. And so this is where you get archangels and ascended masters and, there's this representation of divinity through these noticeably powerful beings. And because we are bound to our physical body by being birthed here, we come back. And the important thing with going into a greater sense of ourselves and coming back is to shine that presence in the physical world. And so what I advocate for more than anything is when you're taking on a spiritual practice and you're taking on particularly a yoga sadhana, that when you can successfully go through your sadhana and your physical practice and through the limbs and get into what to you is noticeably an enlightening experience where you have gone somewhere and you are energetic in a whole other realm, that when you come back, that there's no need to change anything. That the common misconception with being a yoga teacher or becoming a yogi is that suddenly you have to quit your job, you have to move to some paradise, some jungle somewhere, you have to cut off all connections with your friends and family. You just have to become a 180-degree flip of someone else. And I don't advocate for that. What majority of the old kind of Vedic texts and old yogic texts say is that when you have this enlightened experience, that you invest in the world that you're in, that your dharma and your karma becomes sharing that presence with the common people, and to be intrinsically ingrained in your immediate life. That there's really nothing in the texts that ever say that you need to move away to a different country, you need to go to Bali, you need to teach yoga full time, you need to stop talking to your toxic parents and stop talking to all your friends, and that you need to make new friends and all this stuff. There's nothing anywhere that ever says that. In fact, the leading text of the Bhagavad Gita strictly says to embrace your karma, to embrace the life that you're born into, and to take the divine guidance and to apply it into your karma. That's exactly the exchange that's going on between Arjuna and Krishna. Because Arjuna is this warrior and he's an archer, and his family is going to war. And so when he looks across the battlefield, he sees cousins and uncles and teachers and gurus who he's known all of his life. And he's like, I don't want to fight them. And Krishna is on his side. And he's like, well, if you're here, just grant me enlightenment so then I can be out of this and then I don't have to do anything. And Krishna says, no. Your enlightenment and your interaction with me and bestowing the truth upon you is to face your karma, is to face your duty. You have to fight this battle, even if it means that you are fighting against people that you know and you love, that there is a wrongdoing on their end, that they are invading, they are going against the karma of the land and trying to take something that you have a duty to then protect. And so you can take that story and apply that into your own life. What job do you have? What family do you have? What friends do you have? So if you're doing a yoga practice and you're going deep within yourself and you're doing a lot of healing, you're doing something that 90% of people don't do. So why does it make sense to then leave everybody and then go to a place where everybody's doing what you're doing? Then how do you actually heal it? How do you help anybody around you heal? And this is my dilemma with the yoga community and the spiritual community, is they think that they need to abandon the modern world, go live in Thailand or go live in Bali and just be around their own little cohort of everybody dancing and singing and healing all together. And it's like, well, what about the rest of the world? You're literally doing the opposite of what the yoga texts tell us to do. And so the most pertinent thing is do your sadhana practice. If you out of 1,000 people are the only one doing it, that in your experience of coming in contact with divine intuition and something greater than yourself, that then it is actually your duty to then help the others have a glimpse of what is possible. And that doesn't necessarily mean that these people have to do what your sadhana is. Like my practice and what I do, I don't necessarily teach, because not everybody is going to be able to do the types of breathing techniques and the holds and the posturing and stuff that I can do, because I've been practicing this for almost 20 years, that I've gone to a point of refinement that for me and my body and what I'm capable of doing and what it's going to enable me into my meditations, that I can do things that most people can't. And that's not like an ego trip thing. That's just a recognition that just because I've been on this path for so long, I'm just doing things at a different capacity. And so for everybody else in my life, I'm not going to suddenly abandon everybody because I'm like, well, I'm just going to go live in a jungle where I can be around, 20 people who are like me. That gets boring. That sucks. I've went and I've been in those communities, and it's a massive circle jerk. Everybody's just competing with each other. Everybody's just trying to outdo each other. This person is more connected because they play these instruments, and this person's more connected because they do this meditation. It's like, it just becomes a huge competition between everybody. And I would rather be humble and be in my life with my family and my friends, doing my work and working my full-time job, teaching yoga, being a musician, and streaming this consciousness into those areas of my life so that the common everyday person that I interact with can get a glimpse of a presence of a loving attitude, a presence of kindness and compassion and warmth. And so that the kind of like more meaningful friendships and relationships and connections that I attract to me can then get more and more of a glimpse of the kind of person that I am. And I can outright say, well, I'm like this because of the practice that I'm doing, and that I've been able to get into deeper states of pratyahara and dharana and dhyana through my own efforts. And this is what it's built for me. And does that make me perfect? No, I still have debts that I need to pay. I still have tendencies and patterns that I'm uncovering. I'm still making choices that, I can refine. And that's the beauty of this whole practice, is that it won't end until my last breath. And I think that's a good place to leave it. As always, feel free to message me. You can email me through my website, or right now I'm in the process. I need to upgrade some things, and I need to update my my domain. So if you want to reach out to me, follow me on Instagram, Yogi Zorananda, and message me there. And check out the links in the description, links to my social media, links to my music. I'm officially in a new band, and this is really exciting. We've been working really hard on all the new music. Our lead singer, Carly, is just a massive musical genius. She's written all the music and put it all together for us, which is super exciting. We have our first shows coming up in May, so I'm going to be really busy with that. And that's really largely why I haven't had time to do my podcast. So shout out to Carly, because I know you're listening to this. And yeah, so there might be another bit of a delay between the next episode. I'm going to try to get the last episode out next week for Samadhi, and then I have a whole new series that I'm going to be doing on the yogas themselves. That one is really exciting too, because then we can really dive into what the yoga practice traditionally is. So aside from the kind of vinyasa yoga that has taken over the world, and I went into this in detail through my like little 4-part series on asana and the waves of yoga. So check that out if you haven't listened to it. And so, in a couple weeks or probably into May, I'll start the new series when I have a bit more time to sit down and really write it out. I think the last like 3 episodes have been more free flow stream of thought to get into this material, where with those ones I can actually take some time and sit down and go through some history, because there are notable figures in the yoga world for each different yoga. And so I kind of want to go into who those figures are, what the practice is, and how it's shaped the yoga world to some degree. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy.